Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Electricity is back. This is continuation of approximation and estimation part 13. Okay. I don't want to jump steps and I don't want to jump some topics. Okay. So I want a situation whereby you pick a particular topic, you know it very well, and then you can solve as many questions as possible online. Okay. So now under this, now we'll be talking about approximations itself. Okay, so here the first one says that it is linked to decimal point. Like I told you when I was treating decimal points, the short form of decimal points is d dot p dot. Most times you might not see it written in full in exams or perhaps in your tests in the classes. So the same thing applies to significant figure, that's S dot F dot. Then the last one maybe standard form, okay, which we'll also mention in this part. So is linked to that. So that is they can say round off. So that round off can be in form of decimal places, okay? It can be in form of significant figure, it can be in form of standard form if they say you should round off. So the next point you need to note here is method of counting to the nearest whole number. Okay. So it's also a method of counting to the nearest whole. So what do we mean by whole? That takes us to the third point. Whole can be tens, it can be hundred, it can be thousands, it can be distance, it can be weight, etc. Okay. We can have etc. What do I mean by etc? Is that you can have tenths. Okay. You can have tenths. Okay, you can have hundreds like that. So you can have tenths, you can have hundreds. You understand now? So that's the meaning of what I mean by etc. That is, you can, and so on. That's the meaning of that etc there. So tens, hundred, thousand, distance, and width. So to cut the story short, okay, that was I had to itemize it into 3 points that you need to note. It's linked to decimal points. That is, they can tell you to round off a particular decimal point. They can tell you to round off a particular significant figure. They can tell you to round off a particular standard form. Okay. So now example. So if you look at this very well, and for example one, they can ask you after you must have done your calculation relating to hours. Maybe perhaps you are trying to solve a particular questions, or perhaps they give you an option in your exam that correct 2.5 hours to the nearest hour. Okay, so that's an example of what approximations. Okay, in this case now we're talking about time. Like I said, even in the etc here, time is also part of it. Okay, so now correct 2.5 hours to the nearest hour. What is the answer? So it means that the answer here, the answer here is what? 3 hours. So that is 3 hours. So 3 hours to the nearest what? Don't forget, like I told you when I were doing when we did the other part, that look at 5 here. This is up to 5. Okay, it's up to 5. What do? You approximate. So 5 to what? You bring 1 to this 2, add 2 plus 1, that is what? 3 hours. So to the nearest hour is what we call 3 hours. So that's the answer. So the same thing for example 2, because these things are straightforward, so we don't need to waste much time. Okay, it's just a logic. So for example 2, you can see that if we have, they said 3451.231 to correct to the nearest thousands. Don't forget, in our when we were growing up, we taught about 100,000 tens and units, which was also mentioned above. So you know that this is what, if you have four figure, 1 2 3 4, this is thousand. Okay, even this is thousands, this is what, 100, this is what, tens, and this is what, units. Even I noticed that even children in the maybe year 4, year 5, or year 2, year 3, they also taught them this, which is thousand, hundred, tens, and what, and units. So now they now ask you in this question 3451.231 to correct to the nearest thousand. Okay, all you just need to do, where is your thousand? Locate your thousand. You can see that from here, 3 is your thousand here. Okay, thousand, hundred, tens, units. So 3 is your thousand here. What is the next figure after 3? Is what? 4. Is 4 up to 5? No, it's not up to 5. Therefore, answer will now be 3000. Okay, that's nearest to the nearest what? Thousand. You see that this topic is very important because you might solve a particular question and they say conclude, approximate to the nearest thousand. So don't forget, we have thousand, hundred, tens, units. So what is the value under thousand? Is what? 3. And the next figure after 3 is what? 4. But that 4 is not up to 5 or greater than 5. Then it means that the answer will now be what? 3000 to the nearest thousand. So we'll be solving more questions. Maybe at maybe we have one other topic to mention, maybe part 14, then 15 we'll solve a random question under this part. Of course, we'll drop as many questions as possible so that you can also see example under this part. Okay, it's very simple. It's just like chin chin and pure water. Okay, so now we want to move to the other part, which is what? Standard form. Okay, standard form. This is also very common in a very standard exam. Okay, so it's very, very common. Standard form. Now look at standard form. I have some point that I also bring out there. Must be in the form of a times 10 raised to power y. Look at it. Must be in the form of what? In the form a times 10 raised to power what? Y. What is the meaning of a? Look at it. The second point. Inequalities. 1 is less than equals to what? A is less than what? 10. What does that mean? This one means that you can see that here, it means that a can be what? 1, because it's less than equals to 1. Okay, this is a symbol for less than equals to 1. A can be 1, can be 2, can be 3, to what? To 9. Okay, that is the meaning of that inequality sign. 1 is less than equals to A, less than less than 10. So it's not equals to 10, because if you look at here, there is equal here, there's not equal sign here.